No, my mouse and the doofer that goes on the side.
I think you probably need a light, don't you? I think you should.
Hello, Hugh. You're on mute.
Hi, just a moment. There we go.
Excellent. So we're being recorded right now.
We're in record.
Yeah. So
Just gonna just make some adjustments here. Because I need to. So don't record just yet. Oh, we are.
yeah, we'll trim it. I think. I don't think anyone wants to listen to us chat for 5 minutes.
No, I thought, I use Teams and Zoom. I use Teams actually all the time, and I use Zoom rarely.
Okay.
Now, but normally I normally have a background, but this is not, my silly system's not allowing me to do a background. Anyway, we'll live with the flowers and the butterflies. So does that look okay? Or should I? Or should I get?
No, it kind of matches your shirt as far as I can tell.
So can I just test now the old okay, so just checked share screen. So you should just.
I'm seeing the full app right now.
So right now, is that the headline?
I see now I see, yep, real clean, dark interface, slide 1 through 24. It says at the bottom with a
So you're seeing the presenter view?
Looks great.
Are you seeing the presenter view, or are you seeing?
No, I think I see what I want to see. It's very clean. I see, well, maybe not. I see all list of your slides along the bottom.
Yeah, no, so I'll change that.
Center. Okay. I'm easy to please, obviously.
That should just be the deck.
It is. It's bigger.
Yeah, I have two screens here, so it's sometimes.
It's confusing, I know.
Yeah, it's a fiddly one. So you're the finance director then, or VP finance? Are you for the chapter? Or
yes, I am. Yeah.
And is it and that's a full-time role, I guess?
No, I'm a volunteer. I've got a full-time job.
I was going to say
my office, and I'm over here.
So what's your full-time job?
I'm an IT project manager. So yeah, doing cybersecurity work for TC Energy right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's probably quite a lot of cybersecurity stuff going on, is there?
There is. There's a substantial amount because of the Colonial Pipelines attack, and there's new TSA regulations that are coming in that apply to all pipelines that go into the States. So there's a ton of work.
I'm going to do one more test on this. There's that Colonial thing was pretty. I had a friend of mine who lives in Charlotte, and he's actually a supply chain academic and consultant. He works at NC State University, North Carolina, in Raleigh, and
Yeah.
he was really worried. I mean, and he knows the supply chain world. I mean, he's advised on the vaccine side of things for the US government. So he was very concerned about the risk, really.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine if you can't get fuel to fill up your car? Like that gets pretty real pretty quick.
Yeah, you know, we've got, I don't know whether you've noticed,
Ambulances.
in the UK, we've got this exact problem, not with cybersecurity, but with the lack of drivers to deliver to petrol stations or gas stations. And,
Oh, I did not know that, really.
yeah, and so people are fighting on forecourts. That knives are out.
Is this a COVID thing?
No.
Or this has been going on for a while?
It's just nobody wants to drive trucks.
Wow.
Big trucks. And gas trucks are a specialist job. They require a high level of certification for obvious reasons. It's a bomb on wheels. And people don't want to do the job.
It's
So
interesting.
you can earn, as a gas truck driver, you can earn 120, 130,000 Canadian. And they can't get enough.
And they still don't want to do it. Hey?
Isn't that amazing?
I'm not certain that I'd be willing to pay any more than that for fuel, but it is an essential service.
You know, I think there are days of supply in the system. It's so continuous that so what's happening is that everybody, not everybody, most people are going to the gas station, filling up, going with the canisters and filling up. And of course, they can't. They're going to go to the military soon. I think they'll have to get the army involved.
Tata has a lunch and learn that he needs to. Well, I'm actually interested in it, but I need some PMI points.
It's good.
Adam, I muted you for your own benefit. Are we for time? Let's watch us. We've got a couple, maybe 1 or 2 minutes before we get started still, Hugh.
Sure. Well, I tend to find with these things that people come late, or they or just after the start anyway. So, oh my goodness, Mark Porter. Good afternoon, Mr. Porter.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Yeah, bearing up under the strain of life.
Every system is completely different, so.
Well, I can see people gradually coming in. We've got 10 participants now. Welcome, everybody. We'll wait a few more minutes for critical mass before we invite Hugh to begin. While we wait, I'm going to use the airwaves just to do a selfless public service announcement. Welcome everybody to PMI-SAC's Lunch and Learn today. While we wait for others to join us, I just want to make sure everybody knew that PMI-SAC is putting on their annual project development conference in November. The date is November the 18th. The details are posted on our website. Tickets are open for sale. If you didn't know about it, please check it out on our website, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, Facebook. And any questions, reach out to the organizing committee or to myself, John Miller. Happy to answer your questions and see you at the conference. All right, Hugh, we seem to have stabilized with 15 participants, although I expect there will be some stragglers, there always are. So why don't we kick things off? So welcome everybody. My name is John Miller. I'm the Vice President of Finance with PMI Southern Alberta chapter. Welcome you here today to the Lunch and Learn with Hugh Evans, who'll be speaking to us about values. From a Q&A perspective, we invite you to use the chat feature, pop your questions in, and then as we have time, we'll tee them up towards the end of the call. So Hugh, without further ado, over to you, and thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Yeah, with a number of here, I think the chat's fine. I'm also quite prepared to be interrupted with a hands up, and we'll keep an eye on you doing that. Really keen to hear people give their opinions as we work through this. So yes, Hugh Evans, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share a body of work that I've been involved in for about 15 odd years, and about values. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover what values are, because there's sometimes some different interpretations of what values are, why they matter, what our particular approach in cultural dynamics, so the model that we have developed over time, and we're talking about 25 to 30 years of doing social values research. It's a complex topic. And then finally, to really give you some thoughts as to how you can improve or make your life easier as a project manager by using values to improve the way in which you can connect with people and communicate and engage people in ways that will be constructive. I suspect that so much of what you're doing as project management professionals is the relatively easy bit, and I hope, forgive me if I've got this all wrong, but the relatively easy bit is to come up with the plan on a page, relatively. And the tougher bit is actually moving people forward through a process. And most of the time, I suspect your projects are looking to affect some kind of change to business process, to systems, to organization, a whole load of topics. But wherever people are involved, it tends to get a little bit messy. And that can be partly explained, a lot explained, and I hope I can make this argument well enough to this over this lunchtime, by the values that people hold, because they are such a powerful force on all of us. So just a bit about my business. We focus on why, not what happens. So we're really interested in why people do what they do. We've been operating for a number of decades. This, as I said, it's a complex question. What's the nature of human nature? What are people's values? We work off data, and quite slavishly so, rather than intuition. We're research-based in that if we don't have an answer, we tend to go out and say, well, rather than make something up or have a guess, go out and find out what the answer is. And finally, we base our work on proven lenses in terms of understanding human psyche. So we don't invent psychological frameworks. We take what's there and well grounded in theory and bring it into practice for the likes of you and I to use in our day-to-day work. So in terms of our work, it's all values driven, of course. And we do work in politics and society. So we've been working for, over the years, hundreds of government, private, public sector organizations, and also not-for-profits. But politics and society is a segment, so voters, election preferences. A big one for us is consumers, why people buy what they buy, why they want certain experiences and get excited by some and turned off by others. We're actually quite good at designing pubs, as it happens. Seems to be a specialty of mine anyway. And finally, there's the piece today that we're going to focus on, which is people and organization. So what's going on in organizations? How do values affect the way people are? And how can we harness that in organizations? Our work over the decades has stretched across 60% of the world's population. And what we found is that the way we understand the different segments in which people fall into, they endure as segments across ethnicity, across nationalities, across geographies. So whilst the distribution of values would differ between, say, China and the USA, the actual underlying structure of human beings and human nature is the same. And this should be a source of comfort, not distress, because at least it kind of tells us that as human beings, we come from a very similar DNA deep down around our needs and what we value. It's where those distributions, so the difference between, I can show you nationally the difference between the US and China, and it'll make sense to understand how that plays out in what we see in the world today. Very simple narrative, 2021, or so the 21st century is when China's going to win. So, because that's what their values will drive them to do. That may be a chilling thought for you. So when we talk about values, I'm not talking about values in a corporate sense, espouse values, these are the values of our organization. I'm talking about values which are a set of deeply held subconscious beliefs that shape how you see yourself and how you see the world around you. So it's the deep stuff within us that actually shapes our reactions. So what happens within us is that values that have developed over time cause us to react, to have an incident. There's an event that happens, the event then triggers an emotion, and the emotion is either a positive one or a negative one or a neutral one. And then we behave, we react accordingly. So what we see on the surface, the classic iceberg metaphor, is that what you see is the behavior. What we're interested in is why does that behavior happen? And if we know why that behavior happens, then if we want to see a different kind of behavior, we need to tap into the why in order to change the behavior above the surface. And the worst thing you can do in any change is to basically vilify people for their behavior without first understanding where that's coming from. That's not a source of progress, of coexistence, of collaboration. It's a source of conflict, tension, and heightened polarization. Okay, so we're talking about the deep stuff here, which I guess is why you're interested in coming on this Lunch and Learn. So the way we see ourselves and the way we see the world around us, this neatly sums it up. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So the same object is in view, and yet two people can be looking at it and saying, oh, no, that's 3. No, it's 4. No, it's 3. And you can imagine they could spend all day lobbing comments back and forward, because what's not happening in this process is, well, what do you really see? And I know that sounds incredibly obvious, but that's what we call putting yourself into the shoes of another person, or walking in the shoes of another person. And so if for each one of us to really connect with another, then you need to, if you want to connect with another, of course, you may not want to, but if you want to build rapport and you want to connect and you want to be effective, then you need to then step into their world. Okay, so you need to, what we call, you need empathy. And empathy is something that's innately within us, but it can be easily wiped out or put to one side in the interests of other drives, such as competition or winning. So when we look out in the world, I just want to illustrate this this notion of values through three very different worldviews. So our interest in is, well, why do these people behave in this way? So on the left-hand side, the why with Logan, the famous Logan YouTuber, the need or the why behind the way he behaves the way he does is to seek esteem. For him, it's about fame, it's about being a celebrity, it's about fun, it's about energy. I mean, put a lot of energy into fighting Floyd Mayweather and did remarkably well, considering the guy is quite a decent boxer. So the why behind it is it's about esteem. Okay. On the right-hand side, we have our environmentalist. So why is she swimming around in the water? You know, why did she put herself to that trouble? And the reason behind that is the need to make a difference in the world. Very different need. And neither one or the other are right or wrong. They're just very different needs. So hence joins the cause and puts herself at personal risk, as has Greenpeace on many, many different occasions over the decades, having formed, started in Vancouver with the whale hunting. That the innate driver is make a difference in the world, want to make it work better, and that provides the meaning and the drive and the motivation to get into the ocean and to be an activist. And in the middle, we have an example here of what we've seen over the last probably 5 to 6, 7 years in US politics, where we have some would think, well, what's going on in terms of the support for Trump? And the simple narrative to that and the why behind it is a sense of belonging and a sense of this is our home, this is our place. Our place has changed in ways which we don't like, and we want it back. We want to bring it back. So what we see at a slogan level, a behavior level, is make America great again. And within that sense of belonging, what's been lost in many parts of the US, in people's minds, in their perception, the way they see the world, is that the US is no longer the way it was as I've known it. And I wanted to go back to the way it was before, because that made me feel happy. That made me feel a sense of safety and security and belonging. What's happened in politics is that these people have basically been told that they're wrong. They shouldn't think that way. They should be multicultural. They should look out to the world and invite everybody into their world. When actually the corporate America has actually done a disservice to this group of people that vote in large numbers with Trump, but by removing that jobs, essentially. So Trump is an incredibly clever orator in terms of his ability to tap into the emotional underpinnings of people's angst in US society. We're seeing that pattern play out in a number of other countries as well, not least my own home country, the UK, with the Brexit vote. But I'm just showing to you that the values that sit behind, the why that sits behind this is a destabilization of a sense of home, a sense of my place, a sense of belonging, a sense of identity. And they want to get it back. And the other thing is that gets heightened is that they will fight to the death to get it back, because they have nothing else. They see this as there's nothing else, and that's why they fight for it. So as long in communication, as long as we vilify people who take these positions, it's just going to get worse. You know, rather like the 4 and the 3, you have to start to step into these worlds. So values matter because really they're driving the way society works. And I can guarantee you they're driving the way your organization works. And I can guarantee you, having worked with lots of organizations and clients and teams, that they're driving the way your teams work, your departments work. They're also driving the way your families work. So there's lots of values, narratives that go with families and the way they work or don't work. So what we have in the world actually, and this is an illustration which probably looks a bit bizarre, but we all go back to that thing about perception. We actually live in our own little worlds all the time. It's quite interesting, really. So we go around sort of perpetuating our own view of what the world needs to be and the way we see ourselves. And you will no doubt have heard probably ad nauseum the idea of confirmation bias. We have a natural predisposition to look out for evidence that supports that perception and dismiss evidence to the contrary. And this is a useful thing to do, to be discerning of things that are maybe dangerous or not, or safe. But it becomes a problem when it brings people into conflict with each other, when maybe there's a better path of seeking empathy and seeking understanding. So these are the different worlds. So this matters from a project management perspective, is in thinking about your clients and stakeholders and people who are affected by your projects. I want you to go away with at least one thought, and what this thought is that you know that people differ, but I want you to at least go away looking at the world through the way in which I'm going to share with you now, the segmentation, which, as I said, is enduring across nationalities, and it's hugely grounded, that tells us what we can probably expect people to react. So you can see the world through not just your current lens today of how you naturally look out at the world, but you'll bring what I'm going to suggest to you now, and I've touched on in a number of different ways already, of how you can see the world through different lenses. So this is at the core of our work. Now I'm just going to pause for a moment because I've got this crazy situation where
Looks fine on my end, Hugh.
yeah, just a moment. That's it. Yeah, okay. So what we have is we have 3 worlds of, and forgive the labels, don't get hung up on them. Unfortunately, we need labels just to simplify things, but they're not what the person is. They're just words, but we need to use them. So the first world is the world's need for belonging, and I touched on this already. And this is this is the need for belonging, safety, security, and identity. The second world segment, which is significant in our populations, is the need for esteem. I mentioned that with Logan. Okay, and the third world is the need for ethical complexity. So these are psychological needs. So this is driven out of a need that has to be satisfied. It's almost like an itch that has to be scratched. Okay, so and each one of us has a dominant need, and it is one of these. Okay, so let's just look a little bit more closely at the settler world itself, which is belonging, safety, security, and identity. So you'll see here that there are a bunch of characteristics that describe, remember that spinning dish around that somebody's head, somebody's living in this world. These are the kind of things, characteristics they have. So you see thrifty, fearful, escapist, price, budget, bedlam, be satisfied, national security. Now we measure these specific values attributes, and what we find is that they cluster into these groups, which enables us to describe the settler world as it is in sort of very real terms about life. Okay, so in terms of spotting settlers, typically resistant to change. So, and I'll come on to this, I'll unpack this a lot more, because this is the real nub of the topic that I thought would be useful for you as project managers to focus on. They value the past, so make America Great Again as a slogan, but it could be anything. It could be anything to do with nostalgia and the past. The past is always better than currently, and it's way better than the future. Keep things small and manageable. So keep things contained, keep things simple. That's the way they would orientate themselves. Prospector, esteem, two aspects of esteem, esteem from others and self-esteem. These are the kind of characteristics you'd see. So hedonism, visible success, glamour, appearance, wealth, visible ability, exhilaration, material wealth, good time, busy. So these are characteristics that are important to and are features in somebody who is in a prospector world. So spotting prospectors, you get polished professional. To looking good is important, so they tend to look good. That can be misleading at times, but take it as a guide. Results are very, very important, and achieving results and getting from A to B is very, very important. Competitive, high energy, and tend to be untrusting in the sense of I'm not just going to take it at face value that that's going to work. Okay, you need to show me that's going to work, otherwise I'm not going to go ahead and do that. And so when if you're running a project where there's quite a lot of change and a lot of innovation, and you've got a client or a stakeholder group that are very, very clear about how they currently do their job and how they currently win and perform, and then you come along with your lovely, great big transformation plan, which of course has great strategic value and is going to take you forward and change your organization, make it better, more competitive, and you are disrupting the ways of winning in the current system, then you need to go through that process very carefully, and you need to think quite hard about how you can position what needs to happen in language that this group is going to understand. That principle of language in the world that the people understand is one of the key points we'll come back to and want to make, is that you need to get in their world and you need to speak the language. Even if you're sitting here at the moment thinking, Jesus, money isn't everything, or whatever. Even if you're reacting this now, if you're looking at these things and thinking, well, that's not me, that's fine. You self-identify, but I can tell you that at least 35 to 40% of the working population, it is them. Okay, so you need to know this. And then finally, who's the pioneer? Ethical complexity, learning, experimentation. So here we have justice, nature, information, financial morality, adaptable, benevolence, global. So if you think back to the woman that's in the water with the sign, you can see here global, you can see nature, you can see ozone friendly, caring to the world. You can see these things as characteristics of that pioneer world, and you can see why somebody who is living that world is actually loving that world too. They're doing what they really want to be doing and need to be doing, and they need to be doing it in order to satisfy that ethically things are done the right way, and also taking on complex problems and challenges. And there's nothing more complex, I would argue, than climate change right now. Okay, so those are the three worlds. Now, having gone through them, I hope you appreciate straight away that they're very different, okay? And so there's a natural tension that arises when you would bring three people from these three worlds into the same space. you can imagine that is they could be quite a bit of a standoff without a little bit of guidance through the process. If it was just left to its natural devices, which it often is, this stuff is going on and we kind of think we can just walk through it rationally, and it typically doesn't work. So spotting pioneers, I think I've touched on these before: social, societal, betterment, everything connects, innovative. So wanting to do the innovative experimental things, and then drawn to complexity. Okay, so we have 3 different worlds, and that's the model, and it endures across societies. What I haven't spoken to, I've kind of presented those 3 worlds as kind of distinct, but actually what we understand is that in terms of the way we've measured this over years, is that there's a dynamic of personal change, and the dynamic, essentially, we all start in the need for belonging, safety, security, and identity. That is where we come into this world, into our families, and into into being kids, toddlers, kids, children going into school. And the need for belonging there has to be met in order to create a strong foundation for life. And at some point, people satisfy, most people, majority of people in Canada certainly, would satisfy that need for belonging, safety, security, and they're not striving for it. So they're not behaving in ways to have to satisfy that. So something else draws them, and the something else is the need for esteem. And the need for esteem is about proving to others that you're worthy, you're good, you can compete. And typically this happens in the classroom. Sorry, not in the classroom, but in the school. The schoolyard is a classic place where this sort of social aspect of esteem really comes into play. And the way that's satisfied is through results. So to satisfy the need for esteem, you have to get results. And the results then proves, firstly, to others that you can hit the top marks or whatever mark you're trying to hit. And then secondly, prove to yourself that you can do that too. And then at some point, but not for everybody, a significant proportion of the population, probably about 35 to 40%, the need for esteem becomes less important or satisfied, and something else happens, is you're reaching out for something else. It's like there's something else out there. I've done this enough. I don't need to prove it to myself anymore. I'm looking for something completely different. And typically that's a values crisis. Often it's a midlife crisis too. So and then this draw, this pull, which is the need for ethical complexity, which is the world of pioneers. This is an adult development process. This is what happens to us as human beings. It's not deterministic. It doesn't just happen, but it does occur through life experience. What we know is it's not about age, it's not about gender, it's not about class or race. We know that actually, regardless of those demographics, this is the way people move through their change in their lives. And it's not about good or bad, being richer or poorer or better or worse at any point in this. All it's about is a given stage in your life, seeking to satisfy the needs that you have today. And by doing that, you are more likely to have emotions that are positive versus emotions that are negative. So emotions of happiness and contentment and fulfillment, because you're satisfying the needs you have today, versus frustration, anger, disappointment, sadness, etc., negative emotions, because you're not meeting this psychological need. Now, most people, when I talk this through, most people kind of know this instinctively, and you're probably thinking that too, but they don't then know how to use it in a more proactive, deliberate, intentional way, because there hasn't been, or to describe it, describe your values. But by knowing this and understanding the model, you can explicitly say, hey, well, look, that's okay. You know, at the moment, that's what I need. And that's what I need to go out and do. And that all makes sense. I don't need anybody else telling me that that's what I need. I know that for myself, and I can then make a path towards that. And so finally, the point, we are what we are today. And so each one of us has a dominant set of needs that when we're satisfying, we feel a sense of fulfillment. And we have a sense that the fulfillment then gives a warm, contented, happy feeling. Or in contrast, there are things that are happening to us which are giving us a sense of frustration. And I would contend that most people really want is a contented, happy life. And so values and knowing what they are for you are instrumental in you having a happy life. And now you've seen it in these terms, you also can see how you can help somebody else have fulfillment and satisfaction in what they do. And it may be a very different world to the one that you reside in and is important to you. And that's the empathy piece, is that you can step into their world. Now, as it happens, the dynamics of market change and innovation, I won't dwell on this too long, but it works the other way round to the adult development cycle. So it works, typically the ideas and the invention comes from the producers, which I just give them a different label to show you that labels can be used. Producers, because this is where the experimentation happens. This is where taking the risks. So if you ever hear somebody say, fail fast and fail often, well, yeah, producers might like that phrase, performers won't, and processors definitely won't. So it's not a good phrase to use ad lib or ad hoc or just generally. It is a good one for producers. So with projects, when you're looking at the degree of change and innovation in your project, pay attention to the people that are around the project, and the people that are driving the project, and the audience for whom the project, the client audience or the stakeholder audience for whom the project is meant, because this kind of audience analysis is often overlooked. So the producers generate the ideas, which is then grabbed by the performers, because they're the ones that want to get the result. You know, they're the ones that want to take it and scale it, right? If you don't have performers in a system, you don't get a result, or you'll get a bunch of producers generate lots of ideas, okay, and there's no follow through. I have seen countless examples of this with innovation teams that I work on today. So performers, and then finally, and as importantly as the other two, processes. So bed it down, get it working. And people who have this orientation, this need, they love this stuff. They love the process. You might be looking at this thinking, God, I can't stand process. Yeah, probably true. But you need somebody who does. You need somebody who loves it. And it's going to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. You need that bedrock of processes and people doing processes stuff in any kind of organization, I would say from 5 people upwards. Okay. So it's a balance between 3, but it works the other way around to people change. So don't expect performers to be big innovators, and certainly don't expect processes to be innovators, as in innovating, experimenting, trying things new. Processors would much rather break a new thing and have the old thing as it is than have to take the risk to their jobs or taking on something new. So that's the dynamics of what happens in markets. So just in terms of concepts, let me just summarize where we're at the moment. So values are deeply held subconscious beliefs that shape self-perception of the world. So the way you see yourself and the way you see the world around you. And we're all got this little bubble above our head in our cognitive space. We're doing it all the time, the way we see things that light us up, the things that frustrate us, stick YouTube on and, things enrage you, things don't enrage you. Those are touching on values, because the values that's important to you drives the reaction, which is the emotion, okay, positive and negative, and then the behavior, whether you shout, scream, or get really sad, or smile a lot. Okay, so fundamental, instrumental. The values pervade the work globe. I've shown you that as far as our research tells us, this is that whether you're from South Korea, from Thailand, or from the UK, Germany, the structure is the same human structure. It's just the distribution changes by society and for understandable reasons. And finally, empathy is absolutely a core of how to collaborate, to how to bring things together and to reconcile the natural tensions that exist when you have people with very different worlds, having different worldviews coming together and needing to get performance, needing to get a result. Okay, so that's the model, and that's as we understand it. Now, the model that I presented has 3 segments. It breaks down further, but I don't have time to go into that today. But I've got some resources for you to look at if you want to look at that further. So here's some generalizations you often hear, and I want you to think that whenever somebody says people are, or everybody is, or they're generalizing, and to think, well, wait a moment, I know that actually people have different needs, giving you the need structure, and they probably don't all think that way. And let me give you an example. I'll deal with the first one, the people aren't motivated by money. So that comes up a lot, that people aren't motivated by money. Now, that's only partially true. And here's why. You're probably putting the pieces together already, but I'll just lay it out for you. People aren't motivated by money. Well, okay, let's look at settlers. Are they motivated by money? Yes, they are, because money, but the motivation for money is a matter of security. It's a matter of them having the means to get by in their life. Okay, so they have to have it. Are they really motivated to go to the next level with it? No, not necessarily. They're not motivated to go to the next level with it. So settlers, they know money is the currency of life. Barter is no longer a form of exchange, not since probably the 15th century so as soon as money becomes part of the currency of life, then it's a necessity, but it's not necessarily a motivator. So, but it is required to function, to survive, in order to have that sense of belonging and your own space. So if we look at it from a pioneer's perspective, people aren't motivated by money. Now, these are the people that would normally say this because they've gone past the point whereby money matters so much. However, they can't do what they want to do without money. A bit similar to settlers in that there's a necessity about money. It's the currency. But actually what money provides to pioneers is space and autonomy to do the things that they want to do is important to them. So it's just a reality of the way our society works, that you need it, but it's not a motivator. And so that's who says this. But then if we take 35% of the population who are about esteem, they absolutely are motivated by money. And because money in many senses is a form of demonstrating status. It's how you pay for the things, to have, hedonism. You remember hedonism was one of those things, to have fun, to play hard, work hard. Absolutely money's needed to do that. So to have the good things in life, to have the material things in life. And do you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. And so this generalization is, as I said, it's only partially true. And so see it through, by way of example, see these generalizations through the lens of values. Now, why does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, if you want to get the best out of somebody and you're running a remuneration or recognition type program, if you want to reward people for good work, this immediately tells you that you need 3 different strategies or 3 different offers for the 3 different groups. Okay, so and you can link up the dots there and know that those 3 different strategies would need to be crafted in different ways in order to hit the values and what is most important to those people. Okay, so that's that generalization. The second one, which I want to elaborate on much more because it's so relevant to you as project managers, is no one likes change. Well, that's again not true. There's no one likes change where there's a scale basically of readiness for change, and it's a values-driven scale. So there are some as I identified earlier, that with the settlers, yeah, change is basically not satisfying the need for belonging and safety. So it's threatening the psychological need, and that's why there is a strong reluctance to upsetting the status quo. Okay, with prospectors and with Esteem, they're not particularly good on change, in the sense that if it's a change that's being brought that actually affects how they get results. So remember, the untrusting piece is show me how I can get the results that I've been getting to date in this new system, and maybe I'll be more open to this. Maybe I'll be more accepting of what this is, what you're bringing in terms of a change or an improvement or an enhancement to a process, a system, an organizational structural change, a role change. So there is a path there to dealing with that generalization. If we take the pioneers and the need for ethical complexity, actually change is hugely exciting in most parts. It is the front edge of learning. It's the front edge of experimentation. So in that sense, pioneers actually really like change and would think it's a natural process of evolution. Like, you need to change, you need to reinvent yourself. I mean, every couple of years I sit down and think through where I want to go, and I'm like reformatting what I want to do. That's natural. The part of change that they don't like is 2 things. One, they don't like not being involved in the thought process. Not just not involved, but in the thought process. They want to understand how it all joins up. And the second part of it is if it doesn't join up, okay, if it doesn't make sense, if it's not connected, if the pieces don't matter, or there's an ethical dimension to the change that goes against their values, which is the ethical compass, then they're going to cause trouble. They're going to use their smarts to actually either critique the approach, break the approach down, dismantle it, because they'll feel they have to. They'll feel that, particularly if it's a matter of ethics and doing the right thing, that the change is suggesting that we actually don't do things in a totally clean and ethical way, then they will be really vigorous in their resistance. So the generalization, no one likes change, is only partially true. So I just want to summarize the orientations to change piece with this right now, just to nail it. Okay, so settlers, they want to stay, they want to be within their box. So if you have settlers in your organization or in your client group and your stakeholders, they want to keep things as they are. They kind of know that things have to change, but that's what they want to do. And so they're going to react negatively to something that's going to move their box around or change the shape of their box. So when it comes to change, it's no thanks, but if we must, you lead. And this is where consultative approaches to change with settlers is a bad idea. What you need to do with settlers is tell them exactly what they need to do. You need to be directive and prescriptive and step by step, break it down into easy stages. Okay, do things in small incremental changes, right? So again, the strategy around the change process within a project. If you've got this audience in your group, you need to adapt your approach to this group. Okay. Now, for prospectors, it's different. The future belongs to me. And so what they're thinking is, yeah, I'm going to push the boundaries. I want to push the boundaries, but I know where the boundaries are. I know where those lines are. Now, if you're going to move those lines as part of your change process, then you need to assure me that I will continue to win, okay, and not look stupid in the new system, assuming that's not the effect you want to have. Now, I'm assuming that you don't want them to look stupid, and I'm assuming you want them to win. If you don't, then maybe the strategy of doing that is the right thing to do. Not particularly nice, but I guess these guys would think that quite pragmatic. But what you need to do here is explain how you win this new game, and how you win, how they can prosper, how they can be successful. Okay, so again, the strategy is different to the settlers in your change process because it's based on the audience that you actually have. If you have a bunch of pioneers, they want to change the box. So the classic situation is that they'll create a new, and then you're trying to bed down the new, and they're on to the next new. And you're saying, no, wait, stop. We have to bed this down. We need to go through the producer, the performer, and the processor. We have to do that in order to follow through to get this bedded down. Pioneers are fantastic in terms of originating things, as I've said before. They love it. It's filling their sack with their satisfaction sack with this stuff. Happy as Larry's. Okay. But when it comes to follow through, not so interested in that, want to move to the next shiny thing. That can be a big problem in organizations because you have too many shiny things being kicked off. So here's their reaction. Of course, I have my own ideas. I want to be part of the thought process. Okay. What I'm finding in certainly the work I've done the last couple of years around here, there's a lot of pioneers there's a lot of pioneers in this particular society. I don't have Alberta data or Canada data. I'm working on that, but there's a lot of pioneers, which is helpful. But you can see how that also creates tensions, which are predictable and hence relatively easy to address if you know who you're dealing with. So those are the orientations to change. So when it comes to language, when it comes to the language of values, what I've been trying to convey all along here is that language of values is about adaptation. So I'm just going to give you a very, very brief synopsis. So with settlers, in terms of language and gaining rapport, safe, directive, clear, step-by-step, support, put your arm round, okay? Prospectors, special, exciting, targets, how, here's how you do this, here's how you win, quick wins, esteem. Pioneers, how are you? Set them off in a direction, ask them to think things through, create something new, but give them a deadline. Do not ever let pioneers have an open-ended because they will just run forever, okay? So this is the language that you can use as a project manager when you're communicating to these different audiences in the organization. Here's the formula. What behavior do you want to see? If you want people to become compliant to a new system, compliance or fall in line, you need to know who the audience is, you need to what their values. Then you step into their world. How do they see the world? And then you adapt your communication to the audience. That by doing that, you're hitting their psychological hot buttons. When you hit their hot buttons, they're going to have more positive reactions than negative reactions, more acceptance and excitement even, versus rejection and frustration and anger. So what this really comes down to is that you as an individual, as a person, have your worldview and your dominant needs, and you can't help but do that. Nothing can help you do that. That's just the way we are. If you want others to adapt, if you want adaptability, if you see that that things need to adapt, then you probably need to adapt too. And the first place to adapt, first off, is acceptance that there are these different groups and audiences out there. And the second is to adapt your communication to get into their world, be chameleon-esque. You might be wondering, how do you go about doing this? Well, we've developed a survey. It's taken us years, but it comes down to 10 questions. It'll tell you what's most important to you, what your values modes are. If you want to learn more about the three worlds, I hope we're going to share this deck. There's a learning center that we've set up where you can learn more about the three worlds. There's a tremendous book written by Chris Rowe. It's called What Makes People Tick. If you want to learn about you in terms of values, then get in touch. And if you, even better, if you want to learn about your team, then do the team culture constellation, which is basically seeing your team as a value system and the different players within it. So we're nearly at the top of the hour. I'm very happy to take any questions and to hang around for a bit longer for those who'd like to do so. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope you found this useful and start to see the world now through at least 3 lenses, and it helps you to connect and empathize with people around you, family, work, clients, stakeholders, etc. as a project manager, and you can use this to adapt your communication style accordingly. Grace Whitehead, can people move from one group to another? Okay. Yes, in the sense that you move through life. Okay, so it's a development process through life. So it happens, but it doesn't happen deliberately, if you will. It's not like, right, today I'm going to be a pioneer. Now I'm going to contradict myself. What we found that when we train people in this language, they are able to step into the world of settler. And not become the settler, but to basically empathize with what that world looks like, and be able to then look at what you're trying to do or affect or change through that lens. And then you can then say, well, okay, how are we going to reward these people to do this that's going to be meaningful? How do we communicate to them in ways that's going to connect and resonate with them? So you can kind of adopt it, but it's not it's not like I'm a settler today and a pioneer tomorrow. Today, tomorrow, over 4 to 5 years, values don't change very quickly. They do change, but today you will definitely have a dominant set of needs that will give you satisfaction in your work, and that's clearly identifiable. And in a way, that's not really a choice. No, I wouldn't say. It's just where you're up to.
Follow-on question to that, Hugh, is can somebody be in one group in the workplace, another group when they're in their home life, or are values more fundamental and you'll likely be the same?
No, fundamentally, no. You're not one in one and one in another. I mean, you can adopt roles. So what I say to people is that, let's say prospector and results and achievement is what you're about. That's fundamentally what you need in your life. It's not just in work or at home. But when you become attuned to this, you'll recognize, and I certainly failed in this respect on reflection, is that there are times when you need, like in terms of parenting, where you need to actually adopt the way in which a settler would parent their child, which is one of direction, guidance, love, support. Okay, as opposed to what I did, which was be a pioneer and ask them lots of difficult questions about how they could think things through in more sophisticated ways. And I was just being me, and I was being very unhelpful, actually. So you can, now you know this, you can adapt, but it doesn't change what's most important to have that satisfaction and fulfillment in your life. So for simple terms, if your life's about results and esteem and etc., and you're not getting it at home and you're not getting it at work, you're gonna have to do something about that. Although likely an over-adjusted, which values mode would you find most project managers? Most project managers, because of typically their task focus, and it depends on the project, but typically they're going to be I would say they're going to be prospector, borderline pioneer. So what they're able to do is they have this drive for results, but they have sufficient and care about people to work through people. If you have a project that's incredibly complex and innovative, then that's where you start to think, well, wait a moment, we need a project manager that can deal with that complexity. And so we're gonna look out for somebody with the pioneer tendencies, but you need to back them up with a prospector tendency as well to compensate for that complexity bent. Because you need the great thing about prospectors that I've found is they're great on A to B, being pragmatic, getting it done. Okay, so that was Michelle. Yeah, good, thank you. This topic is always a challenge for me because people will never move out of their group nor consider change in their values for project success. Yeah, that's a great point, Grant. Because you can't change anybody, can you? You can't oblige them to do something that they're not prepared to do. I guess my advice would be to just play with the model here about what I've just shared with you and see whether you can hit on the things that matter to them most, and then use that as part of either your way of acknowledging, appreciating, communicating with them. If they're just basically going to get in the way, then that's just such a tough one to deal with. If it's not in there, if there's no, I suppose, consequence for them behaving, operating, performing, communicating in ways which are what they're supposed to be doing, and there's no sanction for that, that's tough. That's tough. That's where leaders have to come in, isn't it? That's where leadership has to come in and say, no, it's going to be this way. And you've got to get online. Yeah, we'll take care of you getting online, but we're going this way. So yeah, tough one. Yeah, cheers, Grant. Have a go. Any other questions at all?
Hugh, you mentioned sharing out the slides. If that's something you're comfortable doing,
Absolutely.
I'll work with Kevin to see how we do that best for participants.
Sure.
So
sure. These links are live, so you can just click through to the Learning Center. And yeah, thanks, Grace.
Good.
Yeah, delighted to do that.
Yeah, and on behalf of PMI-SAC, I want to thank you for a very fun and enlightening presentation. I was laughing to myself as I got into the details, thinking of work, thinking some of the challenges that I have. I think many of us felt the same way. So it was great. It was very relevant, and definitely gives us some new things to think about, some tools for the toolbox. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing all your work. Great.
It's been delightful. I love the topic, so important. So good luck with what you're doing, and keep in touch.
Okay, everyone. We'll send out PDU claim codes information a couple days after this call as well. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh.
Bye, thanks.